and listening to the word of God, he saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." And Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and we haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." And when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled their boat so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. And then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will catch men." So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." And Jesus reached out his hand and he touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." May God continue to add his blessings to the reading and hearing of his word today.
This fall, one man's world turns upside down.
Hello? Anybody? Where's everyone? Hey, are your teams even?
I think we got it.
I think we got it.
The Outcastaway, coming straight to video.
I don't know if you've ever felt that way. I have, certainly have. And I'm sure you know that. But I haven't, we've all been involved in situations where we feel as if we're not among the chosen, right? Like what we have is not wanted. It's not a good feeling. So there I was in the summer of '79, heading west in my buddy Bob's orange station wagon. We both had just finished our junior year at Ohio Northern University. He was dropping me off for my summer job in Estes Park, Colorado, while he would continue on north to his summer job in Wyoming with Exxon Petroleum. Now Bob was an engineer major, while I was a business marketing major. So naturally, I was on my way to spending the summer as a dishwasher at the YMCA of the Rockies. This is a family retreat camp which could house over 2,000 guests at one time with a summer staff of about 200. I'm getting kind of an echo or a ringing. Maybe take me down a little bit. So there I was in Estes Park, Colorado, hired on summer staff. It was about 200 of us. The only human being I knew out there was one person who invited me to apply for the job. His name was Wes, and he was another Ohio Northern student like myself, and he had worked out there summers before. Wes knew lots of people, and Wes and I were more acquaintances than friends, but I applied and got accepted, and we worked in different departments, so I didn't really get to see Wes very much. So I started the summer not knowing anyone. And almost every state was represented on that summer staff, not to mention a few other countries. There were all kinds of people, all kinds of interests, beliefs, and backgrounds. I fit in like a moose in a Hawaiian beach. At least that's the way I felt. It took a while, but many bonds of friendship developed over that summer. Many memories were made, and that was one of the best summers, if not the best summer of my life. The work was hard, tedious, 6 days a week, but the camaraderie was awesome. There was one rule in particular for summer staff. We all knew it. We knew that if you break this rule, you're going to be packing your suitcase. And the rule was this: you never hike alone in the Rockies. Never. If you hike, you will go with a buddy or more. You will sign out camp on a special paper, and you will declare your destination and approximate time of return. The elevations out there run from 8,000 to 14,000 feet. Even though it was summer, the trails often had ice and snow. There were sometimes whiteouts, which is when the clouds are low enough that they block visibility, and you can get lost quite easily. Not to mention flash storms coming from nowhere and lightning strikes. You could easily get lost, dropped, fried, or worse. I can remember back then there were signs all along the trails, and the sign said, "The mountains don't care." Has anybody seen those signs out there? The mountains don't care. Now, I don't think these signs are still up anymore. I think the Colorado Tourism Department took them all down. But, basically what this sign meant was, warning, you're in a cold, harsh, dangerous place. It's beautiful, but beware. Now, just like the mountains, life can be cold and hard and unpredictable as well. And we need to walk with a buddy or two. We are meant to be part of a community. Now that summer in Colorado, because I welcomed the company of others, and because others welcomed me, I blossomed. I grew emotionally and spiritually in leaps and bounds. I gained more trust in God and confidence in what I could handle that summer than I did in the 20 years that were before. That was my breakout summer. I can only imagine how different things might have turned out for me had Wes never invited me in the first place to apply. Or had my dad said no, which I fully expected. Or had I got out there and kept to myself, or not been welcomed by the other staff. To be honest with you, I hated the job.
No.
I was wanting to come home in a week, but I stuck it out. Imagine if the response I got from the other staff, 1,300 miles from home, and the response was, "I can't hang out with you because you're not from these parts." Or "I can't hang out with you because you're not from my parts, Texas or California or whatever." Or "I can't hang out with you because you're Catholic, or because you're too liberal, or too conservative, or too young, or too old, or you're too out of shape, or too nerdy, or quirky, or backwards, or forward. So I just don't get you, and I'm not going to even try." Imagine if that had been the response. You're too quiet, you're too loud. So that summer, partly out of neediness and partly out of joy, 200 summer staff learned how to open up their arms and trust and bond with each other. It stretched us. And boy, did that pay off. We had talent shows, costume parties, board game nights, movie nights. We explored the Rockies together. We were a team. I climbed Long's Peak with 2 other people I hadn't even talked to except that day because they needed a buddy and so did I. And we climbed Long's Peak, 14,000 plus together. By the end of the summer, we were a team. It's hard to leave the place. And that summer is a big part of my life and a lot of other people's lives. So how are you doing when it comes to building community, strengthening your bonds, opening your arms to new ones? Or are you closed for business? Would others recognize a sign on you that should read, like the mountains, I don't care either? You know, because sometimes, even though we don't mean to exclude others, but we're so busy and self-preoccupied or anxious, we basically have no room for others. About 2 years ago, I went on a college visit with my son Sam in Washington, D.C. We had just visited my niece, Kelly, and her husband and daughter, and they lived in the D.C. area. They've been there for years. Kelly told me about Uber, which was a cheaper alternative to taxis. And this is where, and we were going to the university, American University, the next day, so we would need transportation besides just the subway. Uber is where folks use their own cars and provide transportation to other customers of Uber, and the customers register and pay online, so they don't pay the drivers, but the drivers get paid from the company. So I decided to try using Uber for the very first time in Washington, D.C. I loaded the app on my phone the night before, and turns out I needed it because our subway car ended up having to stop, and they kicked everybody out because the track, something was going on with the track up ahead. So we were miles away from the university with a deadline and a meeting time, and I needed to call Uber. So I got on my phone, I pressed the button. Immediately it tells you your location, it tells them your location. They contact one of their drivers, and then they send you, Uber sends you a description of the car that's going to be coming for you, and a picture of the driver, and the ETA, how long it might take for them to get there. So first I got to the description of the car, okay, brown Toyota Corolla, whatever. And then I got the picture, and I'm not going to show you the picture I was going to, but I never got this gentleman's permission to display his picture, so out of respect, I'm not going to show you the picture. But the picture came to my phone, and it said, let's call him Bob, for just anonymity, for secrecy. Let's call him Bob. That was a prayer. So I get the picture of Bob, okay? And Bob is this very large man, and he's not looking at the camera at all. He looks like he's either sleepy or kind of out of it, okay? And it's a very close-up picture of Bob's face. But you could tell Bob was a big man. And I was already, I have to tell you, this is all the terrorist attacks and everything, I was already nervous anyway. Never been in D.C., in terms of that kind of a place, on a subway and all that. I'd been there with my son, but that was a 2-day tour. We were all together. So anyway, I started to get nervous to the point of panic, because I saw Bob, and Bob's coming to get you in 6 minutes. You know, and I started to panic, and I didn't want to let that show to my son. And somehow we got into that car, and the picture was not flattering, but Bob was a nice guy, okay? And Bob took us and dropped us off in front of American University. All right, we got there safe and sound. Now, I had asked Bob a number of questions en route, but I was so nervous and uptight. Sadly, I'm here to tell you that I don't remember anything that Bob said. Bob was not from our country, and I don't remember anything. He spoke decent English, but I don't remember anything because I was not available for community that day. Okay? I was barely available for my son. And you know, I had visions in my mind that we'd be running through alleys, to be honest with you. But it was raining. And we had like 15 minutes to get there. So anyway, I was unavailable that day. I blew the chance to get to know someone who was a nice guy and was there to help me out. I never got to know Bob, you know? Never got to really learn about Bob and what was going on with him in his life. And what he did tell me, I don't remember. And I didn't remember that day. It was just, that's how out of the picture I was. So the problem is here, when tasks or plans come before people, you are not available for community. Right? When fear or anxiety dominates your thoughts, you're not available for community. When certain first impressions or judgments or prejudices or differences dominate you or are even present, you're not available totally for community. You really can't share yourself, and you really can't receive from that person. There's too much static and interference. Now, we can become so good at building walls that we end up freezing other people out. We can become professional shunners who intentionally exclude others, but we do it so well and in such a subtle, quiet, civil manner that we feel justified in doing it. And it becomes a habit. We all have our little circles, you know. We all travel about this life in our little group of friends. You know, we all stick with people that we know, and we tend not to share with anybody outside of that circle. And that can be somewhat healthy in some ways. But the problem is that there's a lot of people who need you out there. And you are here for those people. Do you understand that? You and I are put here for those people, the misfits of life. We need to remember one thing about misfits. In this life, we are all misfits until we meet the love of God. We forget so easily how far God lifted us up. How we were totally unconnected, disconnected, not just from God, but from others, even our families. We kept distance. And in our sin, we sought rebellion and distance over closeness. We wanted to push people away. And God reached all the way down to our little mud hole and established us in community. And we tend to forget that. We tend to forget because we have such a veneer. We've built such a veneer over that. And it's been so long ago. But guess what? He's still saving you. He's still pulling you up. You're still not on your own. Don't think that you are. I'm not on my own at all. There are so many times that we need rescue, and he doesn't. And in little ways, in big ways, we're hanging on sometimes barely. And if it weren't for what he's done for us, what he does, what he will do, we'd be falling into a pit again. All over again. So we're all misfits. The thing about Jesus, he was always seeking community, except for those times when he withdrew to gain strength and community with God. Jesus went out of his way to seek out the least, the lost, the last. He focused on others. He welcomed interruptions, small children, tax collectors, moral degenerates, losers. In fact, he died for them. You know, people we would hardly want to be seen with. Jesus met them, sat at their tables, he touched them. He washed their feet. He made himself nothing just for them, just for you, just for me. You know, Jesus loves all of us this way. How can we build this kind of community here? How can we love and welcome others this way? Well, you can practice going out of your way, of your normal routines, for one thing. It can be small ways, you know? Do something that you're not used to doing. Practice hanging out in different places that you usually hang out in, with people who are different from you. Practice noticing the strangers around you, whether it's at an Express Mart or whether it's in a waiting room, bank. Just cast your eyes. Take your mind off of your tasks, your worries, your future. Set your eyes on another person. I'm not telling you to stare them down or anything, but you know, just ask yourself, what's that person going through? Just notice their nonverbals, how they stand, you know, how they hold themselves. Notice what they're talking about, their tone of voice, how they deal with another person. Ask yourself, what is this person's struggle right now? Now, I'm not saying you're going to fix it for them, but always pray for them, for Pete's sake. But just kind of ask yourself, what are they going through right now? What do they need? What motivates them? What challenges do they have? What's that person's strengths? What's good about them? That's a real nice habit to practice. Look for the good. Practice these kind of things, you know? And of course, all this would be much easier if you actually strike up a conversation with a stranger. So practice that too while you're at it. We've got a perfect topic today, you know? Well, how about this weather? You know, what do you think about the weather? My door was froze today. What about you? Anything frozen in your life? You know what I mean? Strike up a conversation. Yesterday, I ended up shoveling my driveway, because I like the exercise, to be honest with you. I need it. And, I bundle up and I go out there, and usually first thing I do is I grab my headphones. You know, I put on a big strappy pair of headphones, you know. The little ones, to me, always break or they lose their charge or whatever. So I was looking for my headphones, and I just said, you know, I'm starting to sweat. I'm so hot in this suit. I'm going to forget the headphones. I'm going to go out and shovel my lawn. I was driving. And so I'm out there shoveling, and I look over, and before I look over even, I hear a voice. Like, wow, there's people alive today. You know? And it's my neighbor, and he's out shoveling his driveway. And we just start yakking to each other, you know, about things, and about church, and about other things. And then, as we're shoveling, somebody from our neighborhood is driving down the road in a little snowplow, not a big snowplow, it's a little personal tractor thing. And without even asking, he starts getting the heavy snow from the end of the driveway where the big snowplows have pushed it over. You know what that is? That would have been an hour of shoveling for me. And he just took it off, you know, it took him like 8 passes. He got the whole thing cleaned out, the end of the driveway. I said, you know, hey, thanks. I said, can I give you anything? He said, no. I said, you want some coffee? No. And he did the same thing for my neighbor. We just stood there and watched him work, you know. And, you know, if I had my headphones on, I would have never had that conversation. I might not have even noticed what was going on around me, because I get into music pretty much. So, you know, it would have taken me away. And sometimes we got to lay the phones down, you know what I mean? We got to set them down, turn them off. We got to put it in our pocket, you know? I had community that day. That was the first time I talked with Todd in probably a couple months. And it wouldn't have happened if I had my headphones. I know I wouldn't have done it. And so we need to practice community. Strike up a conversation, you know? You don't have to go to the depths of, you know, their inner workings of their life. Who has time for that? You know, sometimes we don't in our normal run of the day. But you have time to build a community of people that you at least get to know better, that you know your neighbor, you know strangers. You start talking to strangers, and guess what? You start feeling better about the town that you live in. And guess what? The person that you talk to starts feeling better about their life and the town they're living in. Even a smile can do this. Practice smiling. Practice talking. Practice listening. You know? Focus on that person. For just a moment, suspend your own busy network of thoughts and your own judgments. For just a moment, pardon me, but for just a moment, shut your mouth. You know? Stop the string of non-ending sentences so that the other person has time to tell you a few things. And practice listening. When you're done, ask yourself, okay, what did that person say? What's going on with them? We tend not to do this stuff, and it's elementary. It's so elementary. We lose the ability to care and notice other people. That is not what church is about. Okay? That's why we're focusing on community these days. Right? When you sign up for a life group, and I hope you will, I would really ask you to sign up for a group of people that you don't know very well. Don't just sign up with your friends or something. Don't sign up in a group of 8. Sign up with people you don't know. Get to know some people that you don't know. That's the whole purpose of this. Build a better community. And one more thing. When you look at other people, practice seeing them through the eyes of a parent. Now God sees us. God sees them. A loving parent. You know, how would a parent feel about that person? How would their parent feel about that person? Let us practice community. Let us keep at it. let us chip away at the ice, because you need to love your neighbor because God loves your neighbor. We need to love all because God loves all. Amen?